If you folks have ever experienced anything as far as like incarceration or have a loved one that's been incarcerated or dealt with addiction, and I'm sure almost everyone in here knows somebody or has a loved one or a friend or yourself has dealt with one of those issues. So my hope is today, and my hope and prayer is that you leave here a little differently than you arrived. They've said a lot of things about my story. It's crazy, it's insane, it's nuts, it's horrible. But one thing for sure, everybody agrees, it's the truth. And that's the bottom line. And it's not my story, it's God's story. So please keep that in mind, please. Okay, before, right here on that video, whenever my grandma had passed, they called me up to the counselor's office. I kind of glazed through that pretty quick there. So I have to backtrack a little bit and give you a little bit about what my mindset was. So in order for you to understand why I did what I did at this point, you have to know what happened leading up to it. When I was arrested that second time, I'm not saying I'm innocent or anything like that, by no means, but they didn't arrest me for a crime that I'd committed. They were just they wanted me in prison so bad, back in prison, that they literally fabricated a charge. So the second time I went to prison on a bogus charge. So naturally, I get there, I'm mad, I'm bitter, I got a chip on my shoulder. I mean, it's like, even though I knew down deep in my heart, and everybody else knew I deserved to be there, the fact that I was there on a charge that I didn't do was very, very frustrating. Right? So here I am, I'm in prison on a bogus charge, in there about a week, and I get a call, my grandma had a stroke. Man, right off the bat, it's like, man, oh man. It's just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, she was so healthy and so strong and so vibrant. My grandma was everything to me. She was my hero. I mean, growing up, she's a very devout woman. She was widowed at the age of 21, lost her firstborn to pneumonia when he was 6 months old, and raised my mom on her own. Never remarried. What she did instead, she dedicated her life to the Lord and to the church. She's the closest thing to I think the best way to describe her would be a Pentecost nun. I mean, literally, she lived in a little house right next to the church, and for 60 years, till the day she died, from that point, from the time she was 24 years old or so, till the day she died, she cooked and cleaned for the church. She cooked Sunday meals for the congregation, and she cleaned it, and cleaned the church throughout the week, and that was her life. She loved it. She loved serving people, and she loved God with all her heart, and she loved her grandkids. To me, it seemed like a life of bondage, but she couldn't have been happier. I mean, she just loved to serve. So anyway, they told me my grandma had a stroke, but my grandma's tough, she's strong, okay, she's going to be fine. A couple of weeks after that, I get a letter, and in prison, whenever you get mail and chow, that's lunch or dinner or whatever, is your two highlights of the day. So when they called my name for mail, I was all excited. I go up there and I get this letter, and it was a letter from my daughter, my second daughter, my second oldest. She's the one who looks most like me, acts like me. She was my little buddy. She's definitely a daddy's girl, always was. At this time, she's 16 years old, and I hadn't talked to her since my arrest. I just couldn't. But I'm all excited. I got a letter from her. I open it up, all excited, and it's just pure hate. I hate you. You're scum. I can't believe you did this to me again. You got arrested on my 16th birthday. You're dead to me. That crushed me, man. That was my baby. That's tough. There was a kid that I was in county jail with, and he looked and acted like my son, really. And so, one thing about this kid, he had a chip on his shoulder as well, and he had a mouth. And he was constantly getting himself in trouble with the other inmates. And he was going to prison, and I was going to prison, and I made up my mind, if he ended up on the same yard as me, I was going to look out for him, because this kid was a train. And when you go to prison as a young person, 18 to 21 years old, you go in with a target on your back anyway, just because of your age. So we both get to that prison yard about the same time. And I tried to look out for him, but he kept messing up. He'd gamble and get in debt, and he'd buy, get drugs that he couldn't pay for, and was constantly having to bail him out and intervene. And finally, I got to the point where I said, "Kenny," I said, "I can't do it no more, man. You have to stand on your own 2 feet. This is crazy." It was after about 6 months. And one day I'm coming back from chow, and coming down the cell block, and they got medics and there with a gurney, and they're loading Kenny up and putting the sheet over him. They came in on him when he was laying on his bunk and killed him over $13.50. I couldn't even do that, I couldn't be there for my son on the outside, and I couldn't even look out for this kid on the inside. It's just like one thing after another kept going wrong. Like, wow, if one thing I shouldn't have been in there in the first place, I felt like anyway. My grandma had a stroke, my daughter hates me, this kid gets killed. What else is going to happen? Well, a few months before I get out, I get that call. You heard right there. My grandma had passed. And it was just a week before I'd called home. And I was talking to my mom on the phone, and she put the phone up to my grandmother's ear so she could hear my voice, because that last stroke, it took her down harder than I realized. She couldn't make a noise. She never tried to make a sound. She couldn't talk. She was paralyzed from head to toe. And all she could do was blink once for yes, twice for no. That was it. But she put that phone up to my mom would put that phone up to my grandma's ear, and she would try so hard to talk to me, but all I could hear was this gurgling noise, and I know what she was trying to tell me. And I said, Grandma, hang in there. I love you. I'll see you soon. I'll be home. It's only a few more months. Well, the next week I get that call, or I get called to the counselor's office. They tell me she had passed. I immediately applied for a bereavement. In Arizona, if you got less than a year to go on your sentence and you lose a loved one, you can apply for a bereavement, and they let you go to your family's funeral. I had 5 months to go, been on my best behavior, no reason why I shouldn't be able to go, but they denied me. They wouldn't let me go. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was so mad, so angry, I went out on the rec field, and I went to the farthest corner that you possibly go out there on the other side of the softball field, and I fell on my knees, and I just screamed out at God, why? You could not even give my grandma this. I mean, I know I don't deserve any special consideration, but she sure did after 60 years of servitude, don't you think? And you could not give her this? I'm done with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I took the same attitude towards him as my daughter did towards me. And at that point, folks, that's when I was actually the farthest from the Lord. Some people might think it was whenever I was at the height of my criminal career. No, this was the point that I was farthest from the Lord, because I absolutely verbally pushed him away, said, I'm done. My heart turned to stone almost instantaneously. It was just rotten. I was not a good person up to that point. Now I just turned pure evil and rotten. I took it out on anybody and everybody that crossed my path. My last few months in there was anybody crossed me. That's just the way it went. And the day I got out of prison, you would think that would be one of my happiest, right? You think, oh, you're out of prison? Okay. Quite the opposite was true. I come out and I'm so mad at everything and everybody. And in Arizona, what they do, because the prison yard's in the middle of the desert. It's way out there it's the middle of nowhere. It's crazy. And they drive you into the city on a bus, and they drop you off in a parking lot somewhere. And you have to make arrangements to get picked up at that parking lot from that point forward. So they drop me off in this parking lot at 6:30 in the morning. My wife is supposed to be there to pick me up. 6:30, 6:45, 7, 7:30. She finally gets there about 8:15. So instead of that welcome home kiss and warm embrace that you would expect a husband and wife to give each other after being separated so long, I spent the next hour or so, hour and a half, just berating her, ripping her up one side and down the other, just tearing her up. And my wife's the kind of person, she doesn't take it. You give it to her, she gives it back. So that literally set the tone for our marriage for the next year. And it went from bad to worse. It just got so toxic. Like, man, you waited for me for 3 years for what? Just make my life a living hell? I don't get this. Why would you do this? But the thing is, it was me. It wasn't her. I treated her like dirt, but I didn't see it. I just feel like everything she did was wrong. Why couldn't she understand that? I couldn't get that. Everything she did was wrong. And, so anyway, what had happened was one day, and this kind of comes to a head here pretty quick. Folks, have you ever seen that television show Snapped? All the women are going, yeah. For those of you that don't know, Snapped is a TV show that's a reality show that focuses on women that reach their breaking point and they kill their husband or boyfriend, right? Well, Saturdays was my wife's day off, and she would watch marathons of this show. It would come on at she'd start at 10 o'clock in the morning and watch it till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, all day long. That's all she. And one day I finally asked her, I said, what do you watch this garbage for? She goes, because when I decide to kill you, I'll know how to get away with it. Well, a couple weeks later, I get really sick. I'm deathly ill. I'm laying on the sofa and had the flu. I thought, for almost 10 days, I've been sick. I've run 103 fever, and doctors couldn't get the fever to break. They, prescribed me all kinds of antibiotics, and nothing was working, and I had lost weight. My knuckles had swollen up. I was sick. And I'm laying on the sofa. My wife's getting ready to go work one morning. I said, I got to go to the hospital. I'm sick. She goes, well, the bus runs right by here. Get on it and go. And she went ahead and left and went to work. I'm like, oh, wow, that is cold. But I did. I went ahead and went on to the hospital and went to the emergency room. And they admitted me right away, man. They said, whoa, there's something bad wrong with you. They do what they call a blanket test. It's where they test you for everything: lupus, leukemia, every kind of disease you can possibly imagine. If they don't know what it is, they can't get a fever to break. What they call a fever of unknown origin. They told me, if we don't get this fever to break, Mr. Bryant, your organ's going to begin to fail. You can't run 103 fever for 10 days straight and not do some damage. But a couple days later, they finally got the fever to start coming down a little bit. And doctor comes in and says, Mr. Bryant, is there a possibility that you've come in contact with a toxin of some sort? I said, a toxin? He goes, yeah, you have all the earmarks that somebody's been poisoned. I'm like, she did it. Can't believe she did it. I didn't think she had the guts, but boy, she did it. She comes in a little bit later. I didn't say anything to the doctor. I was like, oh, no, I don't know. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, she did it. And she comes in a little bit later. And she's carrying a big gulp from Circle K and wants to know if I want to have a drink. I'm like, no, thank you. I'll pass. Well, folks, rest assured, she didn't try to kill me. Come to find out, yes, it was a toxicity. I was being poisoned, but it was from my liver had built up a toxicity to a medication that they had been prescribing me. So that's why, thank God she didn't try to kill me. She's not here today, but she hates it when I tell this story. She really does. Yes, Hanover, she hates it, but I can't help it. I have to do it. Now, one thing that happened during this period of time, folks, because that was a near-death experience for me, my heart began to soften towards her. Didn't soften towards God, but softened towards her, and we began to communicate, and we began to talk again. And she told me, she said, Dar, we got to get out of Arizona. She goes, you remember what that cop told us when you got out of prison? I said, yeah, I do. Cop had told us whenever I got out of prison the last time, we're going to be watching you. And you so much as even spill on the sidewalk, we're putting you down, man. And he goes, and if we don't have a charge against you, we'll make a charge against you. And after what happened the last time, I knew that he wasn't kidding. Your third time in prison, you're not getting out because they got the 3-strike law out there. So we decided, okay, it's time to check out of here. And so we packed up and we moved back here in the year 2006. December, how many people remember that year? The worst ice storm you guys have seen, or we had seen here in years. And I leave Phoenix, it's 82 degrees. We pulling up here and it's like 5. It was miserable. But you know what? And I didn't know what I was coming back to because I didn't know how my family would receive me. I didn't know I was coming back as a pariah. I'd come back with my tail between my legs and all this. But you know what? My family met me and just met me with open arms, just loved on me. I'm like, wow. And so prepared a place for me. But I was still so bitter and mean and mad, and my family, I noticed after just a couple short weeks, they began avoiding me, because I was just so vile. My sister is an absolute angel as far as I'm concerned, and she asked me to go to church with her, and I said no. And she asked me again. My sister's very persistent. She kept asking me, and kept asking me. Okay, one thing about the one person that I cannot ever get mad at is my sister. I mean, she can wrap me around her little finger and she knows it. So she was very persistent, and so finally I conceded and went just to make her happy. And I'm sitting there in service, about the second row, about where we are right now with my sister and her family and my brother and his family, and my entire family is there. And about halfway through the worship set, God starts dealing with me. And I know when God is dealing, because like I said, I was saved in church when I was a kid. I knew what it felt like when God starts dealing with you. My heart starts pumping, and I start breaking in sweat, and I'm like, start getting all antsy and looking for an exit sign and all this other stuff. But I could feel that building up, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on? All of a sudden, I had tears coming down my cheeks. I'm like, what is this? I haven't even cried since I was a kid. And I was like, did not like it, folks. It was pure love, and I didn't like it. It was just too much. It was overwhelming. I was used to my bubble. I was used to being in control. I did not like not having control over my emotions. So I vowed I wasn't going to go back. And, I didn't for about 3 weeks. But my sister is very, very persistent. She kept asking me, please come back with me. Now, you know what? Fine. I'll go. But I went ahead and had a little talk with God first. So, you know what? I want to make my family happy. So I'm going to go. But I'm only going to go on one condition. You leave me alone. And you know what? I went to church that day, and he did. He left me alone. But what happened? I met some of the most awesome people, wonderful group of people that I've ever met in my life. They began to love on me. We started making friends, and I just fell in love with the atmosphere, the music. I fell in love with the people. I was keeping God at arm's length, but see, God's smarter than I am. How many of you know that? He used his people. He used his people. He didn't mess with me, but he used his people, the love of Christ flowing through them to me. And I just fell in love with the place. And they needed help with their media department, right? And they have a huge media department, television station, the whole bit. And with my experience in video productions, they asked if I would help out. I said, sure, I'll help out. No problem. And I started helping out just a little bit on the weekends, but they needed help editing. So they asked me if I'd come in midweek and help edit the TV show. I said, sure. I remember I'm standing out there, and he's okay, well, the thing is, you're probably going to be here by yourself, so you're going to need keys to the church. And he hands me keys to the church. I'm holding these keys, and I'm like, holy cow. I go home and tell my wife, they gave me the keys to the church. She goes, do they know who you are? I said, no, they don't. So I better talk to them and fill them in. The next day I go and I sit down with the pastors, and I tell them my story, fully expecting them to ask for the keys back, right? But I felt like they were going to trust me with these keys, with all these millions of dollars worth of equipment. I should, be honest with them. And so I was. I told them my entire story, and the pastor was like, that was you then. That's not you now. We love you. Welcome aboard. Folks, nobody has ever put trust in me like that before. Ever. My whole family, nobody. Blew me away. And God kept showing up like that time and time again for the next year. I'm there editing midweek one time. It was on a Wednesday morning. I'm in the church by myself, and all of a sudden I get this chest pain. It was kind of like a cramp, and it kind of came and it went. Then another one came and it went, and started getting more frequent. Pretty soon this pain goes in my shoulder, down my arm, up the side of my neck, my face. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that's any good. Just saying. So I call my doctor. The doctor says, hang up right now, call 911 and get to the hospital. All right, so I hang up. I said, okay, I'll go to the hospital. I ain't going to call 911. The hospital's 1 mile away. I'll drive. So I get in the car, decide to drive to the hospital. By the time I get there, I can't get out of the car. They come out with the gurney, load me up, rush me in there. I mean, they're running around. I have like 4 or 5 doctors and nurses all crowded in that one room. They're bringing in the crash cart, greasing up the pedals. I said, whoa, I'm not even out yet, guys. But they're all getting ready, and they do all the tests, all the scopes, all the scans, everything. Doctor comes in and says, Mr. Bryant, you got a blockage. And we're going to have to go in the morning and do a procedure. The blockage, man, I was just fine. I've never had any chest pains in my life before, ever. It just come on, just all of a sudden. Wow. So the next morning I'm laying there in the hospital bed, and before the doctors come in, 2 gentlemen showed up from the church, and they're on our pastoral team. They go out and visit in the hospitals, and they go out in nursing homes and stuff like that. And so they showed up there, and they asked me if they could pray for me, right? And I'm thinking, well, sure, why not? Ain't gonna hurt nothing. My wife was there. They prayed for me. They left. I'm like, yep, that's cool. My wife was like, it was really nice of them. Yeah, it was. Doctors come in a little bit later, just a few minutes. They said, all right, Mr. Bryant, we're going to take these nitroglycerin patches off of you. And when we do, that pain is going to come back. But we want you to be aware that's why. but we had to take them off before we moved forward with the procedure. All right. Take the patches off. A few minutes later, any pain? No. 15 minutes later, any pain? After 20 minutes, no pain? Wow. Took me in, did another scan, the blockage was gone. I didn't get it. You know, I was like, you know, wow, that oatmeal really works. Because, see, if I would have admitted that it was God that healed me, that would have meant I had to surrender. And I wasn't going to do that. It was easier to deny that it was him. Because I still had that bitterness going on, right? Folks, bitterness will destroy you. If you don't get it eradicated right away, it's like a cancer. It will just eat you up. It'll destroy your relationships. It'll destroy everything around you. And most importantly, it will destroy you and your relationship with God. It's absolutely the devil's number one tool. 2 weeks later, I'm going to St. Louis for a follow-up appointment with my cardiologist. And it's me and my mom. We're driving down 270 over there. Right there where the 367 comes on the 270. Monday morning, about noon, torrential rainstorm. One of those rainstorms you can't see past the hood of the car, right? I mean, it was bad. Just sheets. Everybody's driving about. How many people drive more stupid in the rain over there than? I've never been able to figure that out. I mean, it's just like it starts raining, everybody just loses their mind. So anyway, folks, if any of you, I hope nobody drove over here from St. Louis. Just saying. But anyway, we're driving along. Everybody's moving about 70 miles an hour, driving crazy. And this lady comes out of 367 and she starts to hydroplane. And she T-bones us. And I'm in the middle lane. I'm trying to keep control of the car. And my mom's in the passenger seat. She goes into a 360 spin and hits us again. This time I hit that concrete median there in the middle, about 70 miles an hour. Car's totaled all the way around. Doors are all jammed up. Nothing, can't get anything open, can't get out of the car. Center lane, massive traffic, rainstorm. I look in the rearview mirror and I see a semi go. Another one. Car's just barely missing us. Coming up, they can't see us. They're coming up right at the last minute and just swerving over. I mean, we're going to die. There's no way we're getting out of this alive. I got to get my mom out of here. I got to do something. So all I can do is crawl out the window. So I crawl out the window and I'm looking for something. We don't have no flares or nothing like that. We can't even find the flasher button on the dash. We're so shook up. I find a red umbrella in the back seat. I'm out there behind this car. I'm waving this traffic by, trying to make sure that nobody turns my mom into a red spot on the highway. Cops finally show up. They get us off the side of the road, and the cop's standing there. He's looking at me. He looks at the car, looks at me, looks at the car. Goes, wow. I said, what? He goes, you got somebody looking out for you, buddy. He goes, look at that car. And you don't have a scratch. And you didn't get hit a second time? I mean, with this heavy traffic? I mean, man, you got somebody looking out for you. I said, no, but I'm a really good driver. Still didn't give him credit. Still did not want to give that up. Well, I'd been going to church for about 1 solid year, okay? And it was a Saturday night. I'm there with my wife, and when we went on Saturday nights, I wasn't working in the media, so I sit in the back row. Me and my wife like sitting in the back row. Not talking anything about the back row sitters. Just saying that's where we like to sit. My daughter at the time, she was 13 years old. My youngest. And she liked sitting right up front and center. She loved soaking up the praise and worship. She was all about the service, man. She just wanted to be right there, right there in the center. And this one particular night, she asked me and my wife to come up and sit with her. I'm like, no, not going to happen. My wife said, hey, ain't going to hurt nothing. Just go up and sit with her. Just one time. Fine. So we go up and we sit on the front row. Again, about halfway through praise and worship, here it happens again. All of a sudden, first time in a year, I start breaking into sweats. Heart starts. Oh, God, why are you doing this? What do you want me for? I'm a screw up. I'm going to let you down, man. I'm going to let everybody in here down. It's in my DNA. I can't help it. I'm a mess. Just saying. Hey, bigger the mess, bigger the blessing. Believe me, folks. Why do you even want to mess with somebody like me? I can do you no good. I can do this church no good. I'm only here for a moment. Why? But he wasn't going to give up this time, man. He was just relentless. There was a lady sitting right over here on the end of this pew. I knew who she was. She knew who I was, but we really didn't know each other. It was my pastor's mother. And she comes down to me, and she puts one hand on my wrist like that, and she puts the other hand on my wife's wrist like that, and she's holding them like this. She goes, I never do this. I really don't. She said, but God put on my heart, he wants you to know something. He gave me a word for you, and then he wants me to pray for you. He wants you to know he's never forsaken you. He loves you, and he has a plan for you right here, right now. And then she prayed the sinner's prayer with me. She asked me if she could. I said, yes, absolutely. And that's when I did it. That was the moment, folks. I rededicated my life to Jesus Christ, and I was all in, and I've been all in ever since.
Amen.
So here I am. I'm just a clump of clay on the potter's wheel. I don't know what you're going to do with me, Lord, but here, this is going to be fun to watch. Let's see what you do. So I decided, the Lord told me, just do what you're told, and I did. I decided I was going to do whatever they asked me to do. Whatever they needed help with at the church was exactly what I was going to do. So I was already working in the media department. Soon I became the media director and the program director for the TV station. And I just served in that capacity, loved it, and everything was fine. I've served in that capacity for almost 7 years. And during this 7-year period, my pastor and I got to be really, really good friends. I mean, we started hanging out and just traveling together and stuff like that, and going to conference. We got to be really close. We had a lot in common. And every year he'd ask me to tell my story. And every year I'd tell him no. I said, Pastor, why would I want to dig all that up? That was a previous life. That's in Phoenix. I want to leave it alone. I don't want to dig all that junk up. My life is good now. Let's leave it alone. He said, yeah, but it would help her. It would help so many people. I said, nah. So I passed. He wasn't real pushy, but every year, about once a year, he would ask me. Well, this one year, 2015, we're coming back from a conference in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the Lord had put a word on my heart after that conference. Expand your borders. No idea what that meant. Very vague, very, a whole lot of gray area there. Help in the parking lot, as an usher, I don't know. Anyway, that was the word he had put on my heart. And one morning, I'm in my prayer time, and, okay, Lord, you said, expand my borders. I don't know what you mean. You got to remember, I'm dense. You're going to have to be very, very clear. I don't do well with subtle hints at all. So that afternoon, or it was actually noon, I'm having lunch with my pastor, and we're talking about the Easter service because it's right before Easter. And I said, so what are we doing for the Easter service this year? He goes, you? What do you mean, me? He goes, Dar, the word the Lord put on my heart this morning, it's time for you to tell your story. I'm like, really, God? How could I say no then? I'd already committed. I was going to do whatever he asked me to do. Very obvious. I mean, it was very apparent that this was a word from the Lord, so I agreed to do it. And how we do it there, because it's a church of about 1,500 people, we've got to make sure everybody sees everything the same, all three services. So we record the testimonies on video, and we play it during the Easter service. And my story was the centerpiece of the Easter service that year. And it was a much longer version of what you just saw up there. That was a clip of that video. Right? So here I am. It's a Saturday night before Easter. Like I said, I'm the media director, right? So I have this luxury of being in my own little glassed-in booth. I can see everybody. Nobody can see me. Right? So I'm in my booth, and I'm watching this congregation, right, all watch this play out on the screens. And the devil starts playing with me big time. You did it now. You screwed up. Man, these people are going to hate you. They're going to feel deceived, betrayed. Because, folks, these people all known me for 7 years. And nobody knew my story other than my pastors. Nobody knew. Can you imagine you had a friend for 7 years, going to church with them and hanging out, going over to have dinner with them, going to watch the Super Bowl and all that stuff? And, by the way, how are y'all going to root? Who are you going to root for this year? Really? I mean, you have to. I mean, it's kind of messed up, right? Anyway, that's a whole nother sermon. But you have a friend that you've known for 7 years, and all of a sudden this is playing out on a Sunday morning on a screen, and you didn't know anything about it. I'm like, I put myself in all their shoes. I would have felt betrayed. I was like, I got to get out of here. What do I do? So I'm trying to come up with an exit strategy. So I just had a plan. I'm just going to stay in this booth until everybody's gone. I got the keys. I can do that. So I decided I'm going to stay in there, and I did. I stayed in that booth until everybody had left the sanctuary. The sanctuary was completely empty. Cool. Coast is clear. I slide open my door to step out of the booth, and there was a line of people who went from that point all the way up to the foyer, all the way up the hallway, all waiting to talk to me. But not for the reason I feared. These were all people that were hurting. These were all people that had loved ones that was in prison, been in prison themselves. I even talked to one couple where the husband was getting ready to go to prison. Addiction issues, all kinds of things. They all just wanted to talk. Thinking about it, these people all went to our church. These issues were all there. The thing is, nobody knew about it. Prison's not something you talk about. You been in prison? Oh, yeah, me too. That's cool. No, you don't do that. You don't talk about it. It's like if you have a brother in prison, you don't go around telling people your brother's in prison. You kind of like, don't want to talk about that. Like I did. I didn't want to talk about it. But what we did is we opened up a dialogue. And then real healing began. It was amazing. It became very apparent that there was a need for a ministry, a prison ministry. And that's how the Dream Center of Alton was born. And the Dream Center is a reentry program for both juveniles and adults. And our goal there is to get individuals stabilized within the first 90 days of release. Because we know that if we can get them stabilized and employed within that 90-day period, we reduce the chances of that individual going back to prison from 84% down to about 14%. And those are true stats. It's proven true over the last 3 years. And it's amazing. It's so effective, a matter of fact, that we've gotten recognized, by the county and the state. We work hand in hand with Illinois Department of Corrections, Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice, Federal Parole, all the different agencies. And now instead of running from the cops, I got friends that are cops. Matter of fact, Annalie and I, we had a luncheon we was at the other day. The whole room was full of nothing but judges and lawyers, and it's like, I wasn't sweating. It was cool. It's amazing. But anyway, the Dream Center is absolutely changing lives. It's helping people. I got a phenomenal team working with me out there, and the need is great, and the workers are few. Unfortunately, we're constantly needing people. So if y'all would like to get involved in a ministry like that, or you might want to talk to me more about that, I'll be out front here in a little while. We'll talk about that. A couple years ago, Outreach Magazine did a story on me, and the author of that story suggested I write a book. I'm like, write a book? I didn't know anything about writing a book. Forget it. What do you mean write a book? But my good friend over here, she's known me since I was 14 years old. She knew me very well. And I needed somebody that could be brutally honest, because my sister was going to do it, but my sister loved me too much. She could not be brutally honest. Annalie, she doesn't love me that much. She could be honest. And so she agreed to take on this project, and we spent next couple of years, about 18 months or so working on it. I'd been working on it previous to that a little bit, but we get this book done, and we're like, okay, now what do we do with it? We got it done, but what do we do with it now? We looked into self-publishing. That's going to be $5,000 to $10,000. Didn't have that. I said, well, that's going to be a 1 in a million shot to throw it out to a traditional publisher. But we had nothing else to lose. I just figured it was going to be something we wrote for our family and our in-house thing at the church. But we went ahead and threw it out to some publishers, about 45 of them, and we got a publishing deal within 30 days. God's amazing. We got a deal. It was just like that. And they, what's crazy? They told us, well, if you get a traditional deal, they're going to want to rewrite it, and they're going to want to edit, and they're going to do all these things. So they printed it just like we wrote it. It was amazing. And 360 A Full Circle is the name of the book. It's called 360 A Full Circle because that's what my life was. I started out as a young Christian boy right there in the Riverbend area. Went as far away from the Lord as you can possibly go, and all the way back, serving in ministry in the very town I grew up in. It was amazing. Folks, I don't know you. I hope I get to know some of you. But I have a feeling there's some folks here that's dealing with loved ones that have been affected by incarceration. You got that one individual that you just gave so many chances to, and you're done. You're ready to wash your hands. Can I encourage you not to give up? As long as they're still breathing air, there's a chance. I know for a fact if it wasn't for my praying grandmother on her knees praying until 4:30 in the morning all those years, I wouldn't be here today. I'd hear the stories about how she'd call these prayer vigils together, and they'd get together and they'd go come over, and these sisters from the church would have these prayer vigils that go until 4:30 in the morning sometimes, praying for intervention, praying for my restoration. Now, she didn't live here on this earth long enough to see it come to pass here, but she sees it now.
Amen.
She sees it now. Her prayers were answered even after her death. Do not give up, folks. And if you're here and God has done something amazing in your life, and I bet you know what, everybody has a story, folks. I just told mine. If God's done something amazing in your life, it's your responsibility as a believer to tell others about it that might be suffering from the same affliction you have dealt with. Tell people what God has done in your life. It will change lives, folks. It really will. Folks, I tell you what,